Get ready for an interview not only about unlocking the potential of our people and our organizations, but about the cannabis industry as well. Isaac Foster is a guy that starts things and he takes risks on things. And the next big opportunity for him is the cannabis industry. You're going to learn a little bit about his thoughts in there, about what he's doing, but also you're going to learn about what he deeply believes. After working with several companies in various ways, he's going to tell you about the secret of building a company like this to get people to jump on board without getting paid. What? Yeah. So stay tuned for this interview. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about what a mission and a vision have to do with keeping loyalty with your internal groups and your internal people, and how you can use that to excel and exceed expectations. So get ready for this next interview with Isaac Foster. Hey, we got a great conversation today with Isaac Foster, the CEO of Endourage. And this is going to be really interesting because of what you're doing now, right, in the startup world, and where you come from, which is healthcare, finance, kind of in the tech world, right? And bringing all that experience to what you're doing now. So give us a brief snippet of what's going on now, and how did you even land here coming from that background?
So if I start back, so I was an investment banker back in the mid 90s. And so I got to watch sort of the internet happen. And frankly, I missed it. And what it inspired me, though, after being up close to a fast growth, hyper growth industry, always keeping my eyes out for the next one. And so when in 2013, Colorado legalized recreational use of marijuana, that was sort of like the first kind of eye opener. And then watching, sort of more and more states, and then ultimately the Farm Bill, which legalized hemp and derivatives of hemp. I'm convinced that cannabis broadly is probably the largest single industry opportunity in our lifetimes. And so when I got into it, having been an investment banker, having missed that opportunity, the question I had is, what is this going to be the single largest opportunity in cannabis? And if you could design a business plan from the ground up to be that, what would it be? And my conclusion was the clinician-directed use of cannabinoids, so the true medical use of cannabis, and that's how I got involved in Endourage.
Okay, so this and how old is this company?
We started it just at the end of 2018. So in November of that year, when it looked certain that the Farm Bill was going to be passed, and now the Farm Bill didn't go into effect until January 1st of 2019.
Okay, so brand new.
Brand new.
We're talking about the lifespan of a company, right?
Yes. Yes.
Your babies.
Yes.
This is exciting for you. Talk about what's your team made up of? I mean, how many do you have on your team? What's the structure of that?
So I've got I co-founded the company with two other individuals, and they all of us have deep business experience. My main co-founder is Dr. Michael Stewart, and then also Lori Kibbe. Lori's background is she's been a very successful entrepreneur throughout her life, and she is the co-founder and CFO of King's Garden, which is California's largest indoor flower brand, premium indoor flower brand. And Dr. Michael Stewart, who was originally an HIV family healthcare practitioner in the Denver area, had the largest HIV family practice and was responsible for bringing multiple therapeutics from concept to clinic back in the height of the AIDS epidemic, and before we had, stability in the disease. It was through that he really became involved in cannabis, because he was able to observe the difference in his patients who were on it versus those who weren't on it. He was not a pro-cannabis doc, but what he saw in his patients was so compelling, it set him off on a 7-year trek to study cannabis as medicine. And in many ways, our company is the fruition of that search. So we've got him. We've got a scientific advisory board of 3 pharmaceutical execs, retired, who, though they've been involved in drug discovery and drug development, do see the medicinal promise of cannabis. I'm joined on the management team by our chief revenue officer, comes out of the S&P 500, is multiple times built multi-billion-dollar sales teams. We have a wonderful team of independent sales reps that are totally involved in us and our mission, and they are out there getting into doctors' offices, having conversations with doctors, because while CBD, right, which is how most people would see what we do, is prolific. It's all over the place. It's in gas stations. It's in your corner store. There's constant, email ads, but it's not a generic. It's not really a generic or commodity product. It's a lot more complicated than that. And if you're trying to use these products to deal with a disease or a real health situation, you really shouldn't be experimenting on your own. You really should be involving your doctor. And so that's why our team is out there talking to doctors, getting them the tools that they need. Even if your doctor isn't ready to recommend that you do it, they need to know about it so that you can be honest with them and say, I've made the decision and I'm going to, because it should be viewed holistically in your entire healthcare.
This is really important, just from a business standpoint of understanding. So, for example, I have family members that are currently diagnosed with cancer, right, and some other issues that they're going through, and they may have a doctor that knows nothing about this, may not be educated about this, or maybe they of course they've heard of it and whatnot. But what would you recommend my family member do if they're interested in talking to somebody about this? So they can talk to their doctor, right, their oncologist or whoever they're going to talk to about it. Say their oncologist doesn't really know anything about that much about it, or isn't educated enough to recommend dosages or whatever. What does that person do at that time?
So there really are a tremendous number of resources online. And, one of the things you will hear over and over again is, there's no studies, there's no studies, there's no studies. It's just patently not true. Israel has been studying cannabis in humans for 15 to 20 years in a clinical setting. And so there is a tremendous body of evidence. It's just different than what we're used to, because cannabis has been globally illegal. And so, the traditional FDA approved clinical trials, one, we don't have those. Second, our current pharmaceutical system is really focused on monomolecule solutions, right? Where your drug is usually a single molecule. And the beauty of the way that cannabis works is that it's really, when you use a full spectrum or a full representation of what's in the plant, that's the best use medicinally. And so if you do go online, for example, there's a great resource, healer.com. Dr. Sulak, he is probably one of the pioneers in terms of publishing information. But there are actually a lot of doctors that specialize in cannabis. And if you spend a little time There are several registries online. They're very easy to find. You should find a doc that has cannabis in their toolkit. It doesn't mean change the doctor you're working with, because obviously if you're in long-term care, they really understand your history. But finding that cannabis doc to bring into the conversation with your doctor is probably the best way to go, especially if you're dealing with something like cancer. For you know, cancer is still one of the least explored areas for cannabis medicine, even though there's been significant you know, anecdotal evidence that it can be highly effective. But because of the life-threatening nature, I would definitely suggest find a cannabis doc specialized in oncology, and introduce them to your primary care doctor and let them work together. Because you don't want them fighting each other. And if they team up, you can open yourself to the best possible results.
Unlocked is brought to you by Invincible, a program designed to unlock the potential of people and teams inside your organization. Join companies like Pfizer, Delta, the CDC, Google, and Chick-fil-A, and others in over 116 countries that are currently using this program to increase productivity and develop healthy cultures. Access hundreds of hours of content that is accessible anytime, anywhere. And finally, use real-time data to understand the health of every team inside your organization, which teams are performing and which ones aren't. Then understand the why behind that performance. Get free access to Invincible for 30 days by visiting www.giant.tv/30days. You're building a company, your startup, you're investing a lot in it. Your partners are investing a lot in it. You seem to have a lot of credibility with the team that you're creating. There's credibility there. Okay. But let's talk about how, I mean, and we spoke about this before, you've got about 20 people on your team.
Yes.
Or so. Okay. That you had to quote unquote sell on this idea.
Yes.
And you had to talk about a mission. Well, you know, when I talk to companies, I talk a lot about a real vision, a real mission, a real purpose that is going to help people be on board and believe what you believe to the extent that they would work for you for free in order to bring forth that mission, right? You've got a bit of an uphill battle, like I said. How have you brought the people on? How important is the culture? How important are the people that you're bringing on in order to make your vision, your mission come to life?
Well, you know, it really does start with the mission, right? And then if you can articulate it and find people with whom that mission resonates with deeply, right? And I just want to address sort of where the mission comes from, right? Because you talked about the uphill battle. So and the truth is that cannabis up until about 90 years ago was everywhere and in everything, right? We literally and so it's so interesting because the entire history of our relationship with this plant was erased, you know, like when they burned down the library in Alexandria, right? We literally co-evolved with this plant. And if you want to talk about America, it is literally woven into the fabric of our origins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Canvas is from the word cannabis. All of the sails from all of the ships and all of the ropes and all of the clothing that everybody wore when America was settled was all made out of cannabis, right? It was called hemp. We call it hemp today. The distinction between hemp and marijuana is actually very, very new. And it was cultivated and traded globally for all of recorded history, right? And if you go back to the fact that we used to all be farmers, right? It's a very short time in human history that everybody isn't involved in agriculture. And so in our evolution as farmers, our ancestors, all of us, no matter where they're from, all cultivated and used cannabis on a regular basis for everything. You've got to be involved with something that's going to be big. And so I think understanding the global mission and the size of it makes working with us a good bet, because even if we're not successful, they can be successful by having been involved with us. Even though, of course, I think we're going to be wildly successful. I just, everybody makes their own bet. And so when you bring people onto a team, it can't be for your objectives. You have to be fulfilling their objectives. And when those are in alignment, when they understand that working with you will accelerate the things they want to do anyway, and that partnering with their other team members, where 2 + 2 then equals 5, right? Or like when, the ants, one ant can carry a lot, but 10 ants can carry, a lot more. It's that alignment of company mission with personal mission. And I think that's the way you do it.
So, right on. I think that there is a big opportunity for companies to talk, to establish that the leadership, right? And then from that leadership comes the spark of a vision, a mission, a purpose. And that's, what we call the foundations of a brand, right? The foundations of what we want to build going forward. A brand is that essence. It's that reputation we want to permeate through our organization and then on to our customers
Yes.
and clients. When we have that understanding of who we are, it's so much easier to find people to come work for us. Find people that are aligned with what we believe. So how is it, you said align your business, personal, your corporate mission with their mission in order to create alignment, consistency, better execution to deliver a better product with more passion and to grow and strive. How are you ever going to find people that align if you don't understand what you represent, right? And that's
Yes.
really, I think, what you're talking about is that, and that's what I heard, is that you had a strong understanding of what you want to achieve and what you're trying to grow and be based on our history, and you're finding people that align with that. And that's what creates a great culture, right? In your world, coming from finance, coming from prior healthcare experience, prior, whatever you've been in the corporate world and understood the pains of not having good culture, good alignment. And now you were thinking, I don't want that. I want alignment. Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So going on to the next thing, one of the biggest mistakes that companies can make is misalignment. You mentioned also that in some of our discussions earlier was that people underestimating the value of long-term relationships uh, with their employees. So talk to me about that. Why is that so important to you?
When you and your employees have long-term relationships, it builds on the prior knowledge of the company, right? They actually become part of the company. And while, and if you view a company like an organism, like your body, right? I mean, sure, there are other left arms out there. And, in a company, it's not as traumatic. You can, go get another left arm. But if you can keep the left arm you have, it's just going to function more efficiently,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah, I've
and
never
if
heard
you're
that analogy before, so thank you for that. That's
sorry, I mean it's a little graphic,
fantastic. I love it.
we're organizations aren't stagnant, right? You're constantly building on top of what you have, building on top of what you have. And if you have a culture where long-term employees breeds long-term employees, right? Because when people show up and they're, oh no, I've been here from the beginning. And they're like, well, most of you, I'm the new guy. Everybody's been here since the beginning, as opposed to, it's a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old company and we're all new, right? Because it's again, being a little graphic, it's the difference between, dating to get married and dating to keep dating. And if you retraining, as I'm sure you know from all the data analysis, right? I mean, these things have been well proven. Replacing employees at any level in your organization is super expensive. And that's just in dollars. In terms of just knowledge and understanding and again, alignment, you've got to start all over again. And, I find it's better to bring in new blood that's bringing new ideas than to, bring in new blood to replace somebody you had. And part of that long-term relationship, especially in a growing company, right? So I've been doing startups for 22 years. Roles, positions, all of that stuff changes, right? When you're 10 people, they talk about it growing from like a band of wanderers to like a village to a city to a country. If you can keep those citizens in that growth process and give them opportunities to discover themselves, you're just, it's just so much better. Everything functions better. They understand the history of the company. They understand the culture of the company. If they're able to be involved in how it evolves, they're bought in, and you can't do that if you're constantly cycling people through.
Your quote of long-term employees breed long-term employees is so right on. I've never heard it expressed that way either. So that's 2. I got a left arm quote from you. And then that one too. So brilliant, man. I love that, because you're right. If I see that even though I don't know what it is, I don't know why it's happening, I see the evidence of good health. I see, it's just like somebody that can run, a marathon in a record time. I don't know why they can do that, but I see that they just did it. And I'm like,
right.
I want that. If I'm a runner, I want to know the secrets to that. So that's what's beautiful about investing in those employees. So I guess that's what you mean, and more about, and underestimating the value of long term. And it goes back to, we've determined that you've got 60% companies working at 60%. If you have 5 teams that are functioning at 60%, you've got like $1 million problem. With all the costs, with the training, the turnover, the lack of productivity, you've got $1 million problem on your hands. Who here can afford $1 million problem, right? What's the word of advice? What's coming from your background, your history of doing startups, of working in the world of people? How can we best foster those relationships in order to grow a company, to unlock the potential of our people, unlock the potential of our companies going forward?
If you stay focused as a leader, right? If you stay focused on the idea that you're sort of growing a society or a part of society, you have your customers, right? And your organization exists to fulfill your customers. That's why they do business with you. So you have to have a true and honest relationship with them as well. And so if you become the conduit as a leader between your customers and your employees, and you get all of that in alignment, it's kind of like growing your own country, where your customers are part of your culture, your employees are part of your culture, and there's the flow between all the participants, and it's continuing to grow that. That may be a little, conceptual, but if you connect to that as a leader and you understand that it's one culture, customer, employees, and your success in facilitating that will impact your rate of growth, either up or down.
That's amazing. Yeah, you're right. I'm going to take some of these nuggets with me. I'm going to steal them and use them in my own coaching. So thanks, man.
Well, as long as we keep sharing with everybody, right? It just makes a better world.
That's right. Let's build it up. Hey, so I really appreciate this conversation, Isaac. I know there were some good nuggets of information for us. You want to give us something, give my listeners something. How can they access that?
Yes. So if first of all, our website is endourage.com, www.endourage.com, and we specialize in clinician grade hemp derived products. So I know there's a lot of products out there in the world, and everybody thinks they're all the same, but they're not. And if you'd like to learn how to tell the difference, you can go to our site. And if you'd like to try one of our products, you can use the code Isaac, ISAAC 10. And I'm doing something here that I never do. I'm just doing it for your listeners. They'll be able to get 10% off and free shipping on any purchase from our site. And we're not a discount house, so like you're not going to find discounts or coupons all over the internet. But we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today and wanting to do something meaningful.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I'll include that in the show notes, if that's okay.
Perfect.
For everybody, that they'll have access to that going forward. So again, thanks, Isaac. Really appreciate you and the time, and good luck on launching this thing.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. So not only did you learn a lot about what it takes to unlock the potential of people and businesses and organizations, but you learned a lot about the hemp and cannabis industry. I learned a lot. That's why I think I let that section go a little long. I was super fascinated. I think it's super educational and super interesting. And like Isaac said, he missed the .com bubble, right? He missed the explosion of the internet, and now he's not going to miss this. This is the next opportunity. But what does it take to get somebody to invest their time, their energy, their soul into something that is this early on in its growth patterns, and that early, right? That's this early on, and that there's controversy around, and that there's all these other things around. How do you get people to do that? Through an aligned vision and mission. And I hope you're able to take that with you. Again, find me on youtube.com. You can find me there. All my videos are there. I've got some educational stuff there too. You can find me at skotwaldron.com. I've got educational stuff there as well, and all the things on my blog. Thank you. I will see you next time on Unlock.